written in right here like this. If you want, I can.
Yeah, it was that way. I can...
Yeah. Okay. So right here you have a setup written in. So when you have, these are called figures. Can you say figures?
Figures!
Yep. So when you see these in a jazz chart, this means that this is what the horns are playing. The saxes, the trumpets, the clarinets, whatever.
Call a saxophone a horn. Come
They're
on now.
well, that's the thing, is that you're supposed to kind of play it with them. But the big thing about drums is that usually they want you to set it up, and then oftentimes they want you to kind of put it down afterwards. Okay? So even though you only have the figure written, you have to kind of think ahead, and you have to give something afterwards. Okay? So what is just this rhythm by itself? You could sing. This is easier than the other stuff you've been doing. So is it an upbeat?
Yes.
Is it?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a downbeat.
look. Don't look at Tim
Don't
and
look
say
at me.
it.
I'm asking you. See, if there was an 8th note rest, then it would be an upbeat, but there isn't. This is right on 1, which means this is on what?
It's 2.
On 2? And of 2, right? Because what is that?
Dot.
Yeah, dot. So this is a dotted note. Ba-da.
Ba-da.
Okay. So what that means is that the horns are going ba-da. That's what they're doing. Okay? So the proper way to do this for horns is to set it up and then to give a downbeat afterwards. Okay? So swap with me for a second. I'm going to give you kind of an idea. All right. So if you're catching the figure all by itself, 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to be more specific and not any other drum stuff, I'm just going to play only the figure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's it alone. Okay? Now, because we're playing drums, you can kind of fill it in a little bit with dooba-doo-ba. You remember that from a long time ago? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because all we're doing is we're adding 2 little notes in between. But this is still that rhythm right there. 1 and 2 and, right? So if I remove it, 1, 2, 3, 4. See how that works? All I'm doing is adding extra stuff in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So now, so we're going to get good at doing that. I think that's going to come really quick. So because that's the case, I want to go ahead and talk about what comes after. Okay? So we have to set it up also. Okay? So a simple setup is just simple setup. Okay? 1, 2, 3. How much extra work the drummer has to do for just that little written thing? It's a lot.
Why?
Because they expect you to set up the figure. That's what they call it. They call it a setup. Okay? So the 2 new words that we've learned today is we've learned figures and we've learned a setup. Okay? The other one is that I do a little rough into a bass drum to let them know where beat 1 is. Because sometimes you get turned around with those figures, as you've seen, because sometimes you have to go 2, 3, 4, right? The horns can do that too. So if they get off on the wrong count and they're like 3, 4, 1, oh, 1, they accidentally got ahead, they can back up because they'll hear that and they'll know that it's 1. Okay? So there's 3 things total that I want you to do here. You're going to give a setup. 1, 2, 3, up 4. 1, 2, 3, up 4. 4, R1. R1. Just a rough. 4, R1. Okay? So I'm going to do it for you a couple times and we're going to work it through little by little. Okay? So watch careful. 1, 2, 3, up 4. 2, 5, 1. it together.
I think you can get
So we're
that.
not just gonna start out with that.
No.
No, but I
We're
think
gonna
you
put
can
it together.
totally get it.
We're gonna put it together piece by piece. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna learn to use the dooba dooba spot. So first thing we're gonna do is dooba dooba. Yep. So. So that part you're already doing good. It's already right. So the only thing that we need to do is we're gonna rough into a downbeat, which means just buzz your left hand. Yep, and do that into a downbeat. Yep. So you gotta be careful of where one is. Okay. That
Press
time
roll.
your downbeat was still in the right spot.
Press roll.
Have you done these before?
Long time ago.
Long time ago?
This sounds like a marching band.
Yeah, it kind of is. People ask for a drum roll. That's what they want.
Not this.
You won't hear them like that. They're like this.
So that's how they get this sound.
Way out. Work your way out like you did when you were young.
Yeah. The easiest way to get a good clean sound is near the edge of the drum. It's a lot harder in the middle. So I'll do exactly the same thing and you'll hear the difference. You hear how it's sloppier? It's easier the closer to the edge you are. So typically, roughs, I tend to rough near the edge because it just makes Can we try that a couple times? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. No, yes, but first we're gonna practice the rough, just the rough. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. You're okay. Yeah. It's just that. It's just that. You'll get used to it.
You will.
You'll get used to it. Just like everything else that was hard at first, you'll get used to it. Okay? This, compared to some of the other stuff that I've had you do, this is very easy. If it's uncomfortable right now, by the time you come back next week, it should be no big deal. It should be no big deal at all. You do much harder stuff than this. Okay? It's just new. And when things are new, they're tricky. Okay? So, we can do something else in the meantime, if you'd like. We can just do...
Monster.
No, that's not what I'm saying. 1, 2, 3, 4, da-do. 2, 3, 4, da-do. Watch. Let me borrow the pedal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just one little hit. Yeah! See? like 6 or 8 of them all in a row. It's already. That's what I was saying. This isn't going to be something that's going to be really hard for you. You're going to have to really sit and practice hard. The only thing is you still just got to keep track of your downbeat. And in jazz, that's going to be harder than it's ever been in anything else. Okay? I'm serious. It's very easy to lose track of your downbeat, okay? Which is part of the reason why we're going to spend a lot of time making sure that you can keep your hi-hat going on 2 and 4. Because oftentimes for me, that's the anchor. So if I can keep this going, set it on automatic, even if I lose track in my head, it's like, oh, wait a minute, no, this should be a 2 because that's where my foot is. So I use it to 1, 2, 3, 4, just like jazz. 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's what we need to practice getting good at this week. Okay? So we're going to just spend some time with the first one. Because remember how this always goes. The first one takes a while. But then once you get the first one, it gets easier from here. Because look, I'm going to tell you a little secret. How do you sing that?
Ba-ba,
Huh? How do you sing this?
ba-da-ba.
Yep. Do you know that dooba dooba works for both of these? It works for both. You know where else it works? Right here. Dooba dooba. So the first one where it doesn't work is right here, which means once you learn how to do it on measure 1, you also have it for 2 and 3. Yep. No, just do it regular. Yeah, do it exactly the same every time. Yep. Yeah, you don't have to add an extra bass. You can leave it. Because the horns are going to hit the rest. You just need to start it and you need to end it. The stuff in the middle is not as important. If anything, this is the one that you're playing most close to correct because you're playing dooba dooba. Whereas this is doo da. Yeah. And this one is doo da da. So, but dooba dooba is going to work for all 3 of these, okay?
Numbers 1, 2, 3.
It's also, look at this. It's going to work for those 2 also. It's just dooba dooba, but it's on the back half of the measure instead of the front half of the measure, okay? So, we're learning that there are going to be a couple little tricks that you can use for most situations. And then when I put a big chart in front of you with all this stuff, we're going to go through it. We're going to circle all the different places that you can use dooba dooba, and it's going to be a lot more than you think. Okay? So this needs to be something that is very easy for you. Okay? If you can get to a point where you can 1, 2, 3, da da, dooba dooba.
I'm going to get you back into jazz time, though, with your hand.
I also have a question
Yes.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
Why is what's supposed to be numbers 5 and like 14?
Because this is what he's doing is he's writing in what he would play as the drummer, even though this is the figure that's written. The same way that we have da da, but we're playing da da dooba dooba rum. Right? So we have all this extra stuff that we're doing that isn't written here. Here, he just wrote it. 1, 2, 3, da 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 do da da.
Da 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 da.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I shouldn't have made that short. 1, 2, 3, da 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 do da da.
Da 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 da.
Do da da.
Do da da. Da da da.
And then even here to show that he's going back into jazz time. Right? So this is just an example of a setup and I've never heard it called this, but I guess it makes sense if you had a setup and a put down. I've never heard it called that, but just you need to bring the band back onto the downbeat. Okay, so same thing here.
Why'd you cross it out?
So look at how little is actually happening in this figure. Dot, da, dot, 2, 3, 4, da. But he's got this whole thing here. 1, 2, 3, da 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 do da 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 da. Like this whole thing that he's got written in here. So that's fancy jazz stuff, but you can see that's why there's this big X in there, because it's like, don't worry about all that. It makes it even more complicated. Okay? We can just use our simple stuff. So we could use dot dooba dooba. So we can use dooba dooba here, even though it's only one note, as long as it's a push, which means on the and. If you have a big hit on the and of 4, or especially the and of 2, those are the best spots to use it. You can use it on the and of 1 and 2 and. You could use it on the and of 1 or the and of 3, but they get really tricky. Typically we resort to our other one, which is rough bark bark. That's going to be what this one is. Yeah, this one is trickier, so don't worry about it right now, but it's going to look like this. But, yeah, it's going to be dot, dot, right, left. Yeah. Yeah, pretty close. Just leave the snare drum out of the middle of the hi-hats. Yeah, there you go. If you're anything like me, once you start to really get those comfortable, you're going to start putting them in everything for a while, because it's a new flavor that you're not used to, but it's cool.
Like the new Dr. Pepper.
Sure.
And you really like it, so you put it in most of your drinks.
That is.
I don't know that I mix it with other drinks, but I do like Dr. Pepper.
And I like mixing drinks.
Yeah. All right. So, a lot on your brain, but we're just going to simplify it to that.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Da da. Dooba dooba. 4 ra. 4 ra 1.
You can do it with your jazz time.
Oh, this is going to be a lot.
It would be.
Jazz time always
But-
adds to the mix.
1, 2, and 3. You get 3 for 1 here. And the more comfortable you get with this, you can use it all the time. You can use it a lot. Okay? In fact, I've probably got, I don't have them yet, but I had people take recordings of the jazz concert from Wednesday so that I could show it to you. But right now you just don't have a lot of context yet. So it's going to sound like I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, when really once you get the hang of dooba dooba and things like that, you're going to realize that I do it a lot.
You do it a lot.
He also does triplet rolls on the hi-hat a lot too when he's recording.
maybe not so much for jazz, but I do them, yeah. The stuff you give me for sure.
So you got to get back into playing just straight jazz time, Bubba.
I'm getting used to it. So the thing though is, then we start getting to 2-measure figures. Ooh, 1 measure of time, a measure of 3, 5, 4, and then figures. Oh, that's the good stuff right there. That's the meat. When you start getting that stuff, that's when I can start putting charts in front of you.
Is that the cheeseburger?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
I
almost
wanna
there.
get to that.
When you can, how many pages away was that? 3 pages? I think that was it,
It's
right?
like 2 or 3.
3.
1, 2, 3 and a half. 3.5 pages.
Okay.
That's not too bad, right? And especially once we get 2 ideas under control, we get dooba dooba and rough bark. Once we have those 2 ideas with setups and downbeats, so 4 things that we have to get good at, and that's it. Only 4.
Okay.
Dooba dooba, setup, rough bark, and I'll call it a put down.
Okay.
Where you give the band a solid downbeat. Because especially sometimes these patterns, da 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 do da 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 digga 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 da 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 digga 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 da. Where's downbeat? Where's beat 1? So if the drummer just afterwards goes, everyone goes, oh, okay, cool, we're good. They play their figures and they're not entirely sure where beat 1 is. You know, and if they have 8 measures of rest prior to their figures, or like somebody's taking a solo, that's another really common place where people expect the drummer to do a setup. Someone's doing their solo, and they're going, and then right? So for the drummer to tell not only the soloist, hey, you're pretty much, wrap it up, you're done, but also to tell the band who's been waiting and maybe hasn't been counting all of their measures, you're about to come in.
That was me. I never counted my measures.
It's more common than you'd think.
Why?
So
Why'd you never count your measures?
because when
I
someone
had a
takes
good
a
drummer.
64 bar solo and you have a good drummer,
Why
I
sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2,
I
3,
don't
4,
blame
3,
them.
2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
2, 3. Yeah, not worth it.
A 64 bar solo? Really?
they
Yeah,
have to
that's-
they have to
that's-
spend all their energy keeping track of the changes. We don't have to keep track of changes.
You have to keep track of it. You're the drummer.
Yeah, but we don't have to keep track of changes because that's